tonight, as part of World Watercolor Month, I am wanting to share how to take an image. So this is the image that I selected for Hope, which is for day 6 or day 7. Let me see. Let me see. This is the World Watercolor Month prompt list, and so day 6, which is going to be tomorrow, is Hope. And isn't this a cute picture I got out of Pixabay? So I usually use Unsplash or Pixabay for images and royalty-free images. And this one, I thought, oh my gosh, look at that doggy. The dog is what? Hoping for either dinner or a treat, right? And what I'm going to show you tonight is how to take an image. You then get rid of all the color in the image on your computer or on your phone. You just take the color and the vibrancy, and you put it all the way down to nothing, and it will make it a black and white. And then I also um, increased the what do they call it, the contrast, because I wanted a picture which was much more defined in terms of the darks and the lights, because what we're going to do tonight, or what I'm going to share tonight, is how I take something like either pencils of varying darknesses, or this is the Faber-Castell Gold Farber um, gray set of 6. Now, the funny thing is, one of them, I don't know if you can see it here, it's kind of a lavendery, almost dusky pink color right here. And so, I'm not personally going to use that one, but I'll use the black and some of the grays in here so that we will create the initial image of the dog in blacks and whites, and black, white, gray. And then we will go back over it with watercolor and we'll see what happens. I think that's a great way. It's a good exercise to learn how to recognize your lights and your darks. No matter what kind of painting you're doing, whether you're painting in acrylics or you're painting in oils or watercolors, if you're going to do something that looks similar to this, then you need to understand where the darks and where are the lights. And that can be true of any sort of scenery or something that you're looking at, right? Where are the darks, where are the lights? Punch up the darks, punch up the lights. My drawing teacher, when I was in art school, was saying, she'd always look at me and go, more darks, more darks. And I'd be like, hey, okay, I'll go back and put in more darks. So just let that ring in your ears. More darks is usually the problem. If you're looking at something and going, I'm just not getting it. So besides using those gray and black pens, um, which, like I said, you could even use pencils. Now, let me show you real quick on a pencil. Let me find this one right here. So this is a pencil, a graphite pencil by Faber-Castell, also the same company that makes these markers. And this is a graphite pencil, and it is a 9B. I don't know if you can read it on there, but it says 9B. A B is a soft pencil, and an H is a hard pencil. So you can, like, I love something like a 9 or a 10 or a 12B, because it's a very soft pencil and it'll give you a darker coverage. Whereas a pencil that's a normal pencil like this, that you would write with or find, it says right on there, HB. It'll say number 2, HB. That means it's right in the middle of hard and soft, and it'll give you a much lighter line. So if you're coloring something in, you absolutely can have different types of pencils with different darknesses and do this same process using pencils. Or it could just be how hard you push on the pencil. But I do like to have different types of pencils. There's a 3H, that's a very hard pencil by Shinhan, and it'll give me a super light gray line instead of that big old dark one. I tend to like heavy lines. So after that's, after being traumatized by my teacher, no, not really. I had a great time with her. She was a great teacher. And but yes, more darks. So it helps to have a dark pencil to make that happen. So besides the pencils or the markers for doing the what we call grayscale or no tan type of drawing, um, then we're going to be putting watercolors over top of it. So these are some of my Winsor and Newton watercolors. I have them in small tubes and large tubes, depending on the colors. So here are some examples of some of the Winsor and Newton watercolors. These are the professional watercolors. Don't worry though, for this exercise, use any kind of watercolors that you have. I have all different kinds of watercolors. Let me see. Here's another watercolor set that I have here for tonight that I might want to dip into. And so this is just a set where I took the tubes and I squeezed tubes into these little what are called half pans, and then the beautiful thing about watercolor is that it will re-wet. So woohoo, yahoo! You just add water and back up it will come. It's not like acrylics. Acrylics, once they're dry, that's it. They're not going anywhere. You can layer them on top of each other. We can layer the watercolors as well. You just have to be careful because the more color you put, or the more water you put over top of a color that's already dry, the more likely it is to lift back up and mix with the color that you put on top. Now, this is also a really neat set from Winsor and Newton again. It's called the Revival set, Revival collection. And you can see the colors on the back here. But we have several grays in this set. One that's a gray, Otswald gray, that has kind of a brown background to it. And then we've got this mineral gray, which is kind of a great medium tone gray. And this is ultramarine ash, which is just a very pale blue, which is like amazing for painting snow. To have something straight out of the tube like ultramarine ash is awesome. And then there's some other bright colors over here in that set. But I mention this set particularly because I have that Otswald gray out that we're going to use when we get to the watercolor portion of the show today. Of course, I've got some watercolor brushes. So in this case, I have a size 8 and a size 6 round. And another shape that I really like for something like this, I'm just looking for my other one here. Where is it? See, I have a million brushes sitting here. I like a cat's tongue like this if you need to cover a large area. And so that is the shape there. Sometimes they just call this a wash brush, but most people, when it comes to a point like that, they call it a cat's tongue. And then I love having a flat brush to just cover. Sometimes you want your strokes like this to have sort of a sharp edge to them, depending on what you're painting. And so this kind of brush really works out well. Um, let's see. Now, I have taken these paints. I have a whole collection of Winsor and Newton paints. Over time you collect paints. This is just when you're an artist, that's what happens. So, someone, when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, somebody's wife passed away and she was a watercolorist. So, he offered watercolor paints to the members of the club I was in over there. And so, most of what's in this bin were the watercolors that I inherited through him from his wife. And so I finally decided this week, oops, that I would take the time and put those paints, squeeze them into a palette. So this came blank. In other words, these little half pans were here, but there was nothing in them. And I went ahead and I took, that's why if you look at this tube, it's kind of flat all the way up to here. That's because I squeezed the paint into these little tiny wells right here. And you'll also notice in the middle here that I have something else that I love these. This is the Daniel Smith watercolor stick. So there's more watercolor in here than there is in one of these pans, right? It's like 2 pans worth or so, 2 half pans, maybe 3. And the nice thing about this is that they're rather clean, but if I need some, like this is a buff titanium and this is a titanium white. So if I need some white to mix a pastel color, or I need some of this buff titanium to warm a color up, they're just right here. And with a little bit of water on the mixing area, I can get those colors going. So I like the convenience of it because I often will take these and switch them between different palettes depending on which palette I'm using that day. So is that awesome? Ugh, love it. I love those. Those 2 colors in particular, I like from Daniel Smith in the sticks, although they have a whole range of colors in the sticks, which can make it convenient sometimes for travel. Um, oh, coolest palette in the world. Thank you, Brody. oh, hello from Moscow. Want to see some arts? Yes, we're going to get going with some art. Oh, if you missed the art earlier, um, it is World Watercolor Month. July is World Watercolor Month. And so in one of my journals, I started, this is the first one. So in other words, for World Watercolor Month, they put out a list. So for day 1 through 31 of what they call prompts. So for instance, unplugged was the prompt for day 1. And it's to encourage you to get your creative juices flowing and come up with ideas. So this is what I came up with for an idea for unplugged, and that's sitting on a beach chair with a cocktail, overlooking the water, right? Ugh, to me, that would be very unplugged. The next day was language. So this was the 2nd of July, a language there. So I picked a kitty cat, a picture of a kitty cat with their little fangs showing, but their mouth is open and they're going meow, 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 meow. They're wanting to talk to us. So language, that's the cat language, right? Then this one was for day 3, which was retreat. And my ideal thought, besides going to the beach, is going up into the mountains on a lake, maybe puttering around with kayaks or a boat on a lake. So that's why I did this one. Yesterday was Independence Day, woohoo, for the United States, for the US of A. So I painted a US hot air balloon over top of part of Mount Rushmore here. And that was a lot of fun to do that one yesterday. And then this is today, the 5th, the prompt was poetry. So I did a book. I found this picture where someone had taken a book and made the pages into a heart. And so there is poetry, and that on my social media, my Instagram and my YouTube, I post the making of these as I'm going through and painting them. So if you follow my social media, you'll be able to see more as we go through the rest of the month. But for today, I wanted to work on tomorrow's image. And so tomorrow, the 6th, is hope. Hope is the image for tomorrow. And that's why I picked the doggies. And so we're going to have a lot of fun with that. Now, for the paper that we're using today, I have this Blick. So that's Blick Art Supply. I don't know if you were aware, but they make watercolor paper. This is like a student grade watercolor paper, and it is 90 pounds. So it's perfect for when you want to experiment. How many sheets do they give you in here? 15 sheets in the book here, but it's a lightweight watercolor paper. It's made for watercolor, and that means that it'll take the water. You can't just do all kinds of like scrubbing and everything away on it like you would a 100% cotton paper, but it is still excellent for, as you see here, like pen and wash or experimentation or throwing down some marker, which is exactly what we're doing today. So that is why I grabbed my Blick watercolor journal. Now, I will be putting links to these supplies that I'm sharing with you in the description of the video on YouTube later tonight or tomorrow morning. So by tomorrow afternoon, all the links for the paints and things that I'm using tonight will be in the description of the video if you want to go check those out. So you can see I've been doing experimentation in here already. I love the spiral bound because that way it holds the pages together, right? And so I'm doing some more just experimenting with color. I have the spoonbill. This is a local bird that flies over my house constantly here in Florida. And so I did a sketch of a spoonbill. It's a pink spoonbill in my book here. But for today, we're going to be working with a nice clean sheet, and another paper that we may use as well is my favorite studio workhorse, the Canson XL watercolor paper. This is thicker. So this one is 140 pounds. That Blick one is 90 pounds. Okay. Just means this is a little thicker. It can take a little more of a beating. Oh, one other thing that we may be using is some transfer paper. I'm not sure if we're going to do the transfer paper or not. Oops, another piece is missing. I don't know where it went. But anyway, this is a set of where you can transfer your image. For instance, with the dog, if I wanted to just do a transfer of the dog image onto paper, I'll show you how to do that in a little bit later. Okay. Um, okay, so we are going to go over top of the table to get started. I'm so excited. It's always fun to spend my Sunday afternoon with y'all. This is the initial, because these are all random colors from my stash of Winsor and Newton professional watercolors. I put them into here. This is a 48 set, but I crammed an extra one on each end so that, because a lot of times you can do that. A lot of times they'll say it's say for 12, but you can actually fit 14 in because often there's, just enough space for an extra pan on the end. And so I always have to cram in as many colors as I can. But what I did was I went ahead and made a color chart for myself so I know what's in here. And then that was just an initial throw them all in there and then see what I have. And then I'll make decisions of changing around where all the colors are in the palette. And I'm going to be doing that on a regular video on my YouTube channel. So not today, but sometime this week, I'll make that video so you can see what kind of decisions I'm making to change things around on my palette. Actually, I had to order, believe it or not, I ordered 2 more colors that are coming in and on Tuesday. And then after that, I'll do my video. So watch for that where I'm going to rearrange all these colors. But for right now, I'm going to set these close by so that I can see the colors when it comes time to add color to our image. So let me just close this for a moment because we're going to start with the gray, right? We're going to be working with grayscale. So I took this beautiful dog. Oh my gosh, the doggy's just waiting for its snack, right? Ah, so cute. I think I'll turn the paper this way. Let's make sure that you can see that in there. Yes. Okay, good. And let me move my watercolors aside. There, like that. Good. So, what I like to do with, of course, you can freehand draw, which I do a lot. I do a lot of freehand. But what I want to do right now is I want to take this and go ahead and get this image, the basic image down onto my paper. Like I said, I can just freehand draw the dog, but I'm going to show you another trick that I use. And this is what we're going to be using first is the black and white and gray version. So now I printed it 2 ways. I printed it a little smaller and a little bigger. And I feel like the little bit smaller one is going to fit better on the page here. So that's when I was saying that we can use, well, that's weird. I'm missing a piece of my transfer paper, but that's okay. This is the Saral, Saral, wax free. That's what you want. You want a wax free transfer paper. And this allows you to take an image like this and then transfer it onto here to onto the paper to work with. The interesting thing about this sampler pack is that they give you a white sheet to use on dark paper, a graphite sheet, which is the one that I usually use for this kind of work on light paper. But there's also yellow, red, and blue in this set, which is fantastic. Okay. Um, and they come out like this. Let me grab that. So you can see how I was doing some transfer of different images here, right? With the red. And then here, this one is the um, they're gray or graphite. Okay, you're going to notice that it looks a little waxy on one side or light and darker on the other side. What you do is you put the dark side down. Okay, now this set comes with the sheets cut already to 8.5 by 11. If you want to work larger, or if you're teaching a class and you want to cut it up into a whole bunch of little pieces, I buy this big old roll. So you see the roll here, and this is by Jack Richardson, and this is probably my favorite. I have to say this is my favorite. Okay, let me cut some of this out. And the reason this is my favorite, the Jack Richardson, first of all, because you can cut all these different sizes. Secondly, um, it's actually, you see how dark this is and how sort of translucent and light this one is? What happens is that I find that the Jack Richardson gives me a lighter line on my paper, but this one will also work perfectly fine, the Saral. Let's go ahead and cut some of the Jack Richardson off here. Make sure that I've got it the right size for the page. Whoop. Yes, there we go. That's good. And this, if you invest in a roll of this Jack Richardson, you will have it for a long time because you're going to use it. This piece can be used over and over and over and over. The same is true of the Saral, but you can use them over and over and over again, which is awesome. Now, it's a little harder to tell the side that is this is the side with the graphite on it. So it's going to go down, and then this side is a little lighter. This one, there's more of a dramatic difference. This is the Saral. Okay, there's a little more dramatic difference. So it might be easier for you to try the Saral for the first time. Okay, let me put the Sarals away there. So what I like to do is I like to put this on the paper and then use a little bit of tape. Where's my tape? Uh-oh. I only have, tons of tape in here. Here we go. I'm just going to use a regular painter's tape. And let's see. So what I want to do is I want to get this onto the paper. I want to get the uh, transfer paper onto my back end paper, as well as, okay, where's the doggy going? Okay. So I want to make sure that my tape catches the background paper, my transfer paper, and my image. Okay. Where's the edge down here? Okay, that's good. That's good. So now I'll just tape that on. And the reason for taping it on is so that as I'm outlining, I can lift this up and look at my outline and see if I missed anything. And when I put it back down, it goes back down in exactly the same spot. Okay, sometimes depending on how big the piece is that I'm doing, I might also tape the side as well so that I have two sides, and then I'm just lifting like this, and then I can move the tape from one side to the other, and then just lift like this. So that's if I'm doing something bigger or more complicated, I may need to do that. So now you just need to use some sort of pencil or pen. Let me see if I have a ballpoint pen. Oh, I have a ballpoint pen in my pocket. And it doesn't even matter if the ink is working or not, because now we're going to outline our image. Oh, it's so nice to just do an easy transfer. So I'm using a medium pressure here, medium pressure, and going around. Now, like I said, I like the Richardson transfer paper because it makes a light line when I'm done there. So I'm going to stick my finger right here and lift it. Whoop. You see the transfer right there? There's the nose. Hello, doggy nose. And then here's the eye right there. There's the edge of the ear. Now, of course, we're going to be adding lots of furry fuzzies to this, but this is just the basic outline. Okay. And then we come down here. We've got part of the mouth that comes along here. We've got the other side of the mouth comes here. Right? And we've got this part here. And then we've got the part that comes down like this. So this just makes it so easy, y'all, to do your image transfers. Oh my gosh. I've used this technique for a million years. Let's do the eye here. That's sort of the outside of the eye. And then this part of the eye. And then we have the white of the eye, and we have the iris. Hello, baby. Okay. And now I've got to bring this ear down here. Okay. Let's see. The neck sort of comes down, and the shoulders right there. Part of the neck comes here. We've got some fluffy hair right here. Okay, let's go along the. Now, I also like to get an idea of where some of these other areas are, like the nose and the way that the hair goes right there, so that I just have an idea more so of where these lines and colors are going. Okay, so you can decide how much you want to draw in there. Let's go the top of the head right here. I guess we're going to name this dog Hope, right? Because Hope is the prompt for World Watercolor Month. Right? There we go. Okay, now we'll refer back to the hair and later, because there's some hair sticking up over here, some whiskers coming off over here. Let's take a look. Let's see what we have. Let's just lift that up. Oh, hello, doggy. There we go, right there. All right, now I'm thinking I can't really see the eye here, but I'm just going to sort of make it up that the eye is right there. All right, looking at us. You can't really see it there, but I'm just making it up. Make it up, make it up, make it up. There you are. Hello, baby. All right. Now, I'm going to show you the transfer paper, how it's barely been used at all. So I just gently take off the transfer paper here and there. You can barely even see where the lines came off. You can use this over and over, and I just love it. Love it. Love the Jack Richardson. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the Sorrel away while I'm thinking of it, so that doesn't fall down, since there are 5 sheets in there. Can you have a shout out? Waxod said they wanted a shout out over on YouTube. So shout out to you. Now, I'm going to bring this up close. Do you see how this is very dark and the rest of this, the lines are light? That's because I realized, ooh, I'm going a little heavy handed. And so if you go heavy handed, you get darker lines. If you go lightly, you get lighter lines. So what I'm going to do is use a putty eraser. This is called a putty eraser. And like that. So it's stretchy, or sometimes it's called a kneaded eraser. And you can use that to pick up some of this line so that the line is not quite so dark. I could use a regular eraser too, but a lot of artists will use their putty eraser because it doesn't completely erase it. It just takes some of that darkness away. Okay, there we go. Like that. So I just want the lines to be a little bit lighter, but not too light. I still need to be able to see them. Okay, there we go. Nice. Now, what I want to start with is those, Cumbria, England. Hey, welcome in, Jennifer. Welcome in over on YouTube. Welcome, welcome. So we're going to start with the grayscale. Let me just get this piece of tape off of here and save that over here for another time. So we have our doggy image. I'm just going to put the doggy image up in front of me so I can see it. Like I said, I pulled that image off of Pixabay. And so if you look on Pixabay and you type in, Pixabay is PIXABAY.com, and you type in hope, you're going to find this image. Isn't that fabulous? I think it was on the second page when I did the search. Um, but you can take any image that you have and make it, get rid of all the color in whatever program you have, whether it's on your phone or on your computer. I used Canva on my computer and I desaturated it. So it took away all of the color and just left black and white. And then I upped the contrast. I made it more contrasty. Okay. All right. So now we have the overall image. Now we're going to work with the grayscale. So here I was saying the Faber-Castell Gold Faber Aqua. That means they're water soluble markers. And this is their grays set. Isn't that awesome? So it's actually a set with grays in it. Love that. Now, so we've got a black, we've got a, let's see, like a middle gray. These are dual ended. They have a larger tip here, a brush tip, and then they have a fine tip right here. And let me leave this here in case you want to take a picture of it. The cool thing about these is there's a little recycle thing right there. This barrel, all this plastic is recycled plastic. Isn't that cool? I love that about them. Okay, so we've got the black, the gray, and then there are these two sort of lighter grays. The interesting thing is this one has a kind of this is the one that's kind of pink. So I'm going to move that out of there. I think we'll just work with these three. So I like a black, a dark, mid gray, and a light gray. Okay. And then there's an even lighter one here. But we're just going to work with the three colors. And like I said, you could do this with pencils too. So this is the 6B from Caran d'Ache. This one is the 9B from Faber-Castell. Remember I said, look at the numbers down here somewhere on the pencil. It'll tell you how hard they are. And then, boop, let's see, jet black, not that one. And then I would want a pencil that had like a HB, that's just a standard number 2 pencil, which would be much lighter. So here, this would be light. And then this one would be the mid-tone. And then this 9B would be the dark. Okay, so that's if I wanted to use pencils, but we're going to use markers. And but if you wanted to use pencils, there you go. Okay, so we're going to start with the darkest darks. That's what I like to do with something like this. Normally, when you're painting with watercolors, you don't start with the darker darks. You start with your lightest and work to your darkest. But when I'm using the markers, hey there, fabulous things on Whatnot. Welcome in, welcome in. Um, when I'm working with something like a marker, I like to start with the darkest and then work up. So you see how nice these are where the cap fits right in there like that. That was for the brush tip. And then if I'm using the fine tip, let's see, can I turn it over? It fits in like that. Isn't that awesome? Thank you, Faber-Castell. Love that. Okay. So some of the darkest darks are right around the doggy's eyes, right here, right? Oof. Now these are water soluble markers. So if I wanted to, I could definitely come in here with a little water. We'll do that in just a moment. And so I'm just looking at my picture and picking out the darkest darks, okay? Darkest. Of course, right here in the doggy's eyes, there's super dark right there. And then there's a dark rim around here, around the eye. Okay. And then it's dark right in here. There we go. So that's the beginning of the eye. There is a little bit more. No, that's fine. That's good. So that's the beginning of the eye. Actually, there's a little bit of dark that just goes right above the eye here and kind of connects there. Okay. So we've got the dark of the eye. Normally, I'll start on the nose or the eye if I've got an animal like that. And then we've got, of course, the nose. But the interesting thing about the nose, I'm going to show you here, is that right here inside the nostril is the darkest. And then the rest of the nose is a little bit lighter. So don't, jump to making the whole nose black. Actually look at your picture so that you know what it is that you're looking at. Let's go ahead here on the eye over here and get some black in here. So we'll just do this. And the picture that I'm looking at, this eye over here is just all the way in the shadow, black. Okay. But I don't want to make it completely black yet because I may want to throw some color in there later. So I'm just sort of doing some of it black just to give a definition of it like that. Okay. And then we've got a lot of black in this area right here. So that way I can just sort of play with that later if I want to give that eye a little bit more expression, right? And this area right down here is a little bit more on the gray side. So I'm going to leave that and wait for the gray. And then here, this area right here on the doggy's nose is very dark. So we'll fill that in. I'm working on the Blick watercolor paper. It's the student grade. It's 90 pounds. So it's not your typical 150-pound paper, but it's perfect for what we're doing right now. Okay, here we go. So just the nostrils here are very dark. And a little area right here. And there's a little area right there. Okay, cool. Hello there, nose. And then this line right up the middle is quite dark, right? The middle of the nose. And then there's actually a lot of dark right in here. Just like I said, just look at your picture and pick out the dark areas You can always modify it with a little bit of water later. That's what we're going to do. So let's do this. Got a lot of black going down here as well, and black coming around the nose area here. And then down here, this area right here is quite dark, right where the dog's bottom lip is. Okay. And then up this way. And this area right here has some hair coming off of it, some white hair. So I'm not going to go all the way up and meet that, but I am going to do that right there. Okay. And then down here, there's a little bit of the jowl that's dark. So we'll just do the jowl dark like this. So I'm just observing the picture and picking out the darkest darks. Okay. Now let's move to some gray. Now, before I do that, I want to see how water soluble these are, because they do say that they are an aqua marker and they're supposed to be water soluble. So let's see what happens. I'm going to use the size 6 brush. Welcome in, K Dot, over on Whatnot. So number 6 brush. Let's see what we get when we wet it. Oh, yes. Okay. We have, it's definitely feathering and giving us some like bluish gray. Oh, that's cool. That's fun. I like that, because then that means that I've got some, I can move this paint around, this dark paint. There we go. Plus, if it came out too dark, I could also lift some of it, right? Oh, I see where I missed a little bit of black. So I missed a little bit of black right in here. And let's just sort of bring it up like this. Eek. That's the jowl on that side of the face. So again, these are, if you weren't here earlier, these are the Faber-Castell Gold Faber Aqua. So it's a shades of gray set, but the cool thing is that you can, because they're aquarellable, you can take a brush and sort of play around with the intensity there. Play around with the intensity of the paint. That is awesome. I am loving that. And then right down here, because if I want to pick up some of the black, you see how I'm able to pick up some of the color? So let's pick some of that up. And that way I have a gradient. Instead of it being just all black, I've got a bit of a gradient going there. Awesome. Oh, I love that. Okay. Nice. I'm going to bring that up closer so you can see what I'm seeing. You see the gradient going there, where we've got a little bit of sort of a bluey gray going there, as well as on the edges here. Nice. I'm loving that. Okay. And let's go into the eye and do a little. That's why I didn't want to go all the way down with the eye here into the corner. I wanted to feather it a little bit, just to see what sort of gradient we would get out of that. This is the first time I'm using this set. I've had it for a little while, but I was like, you know what? I am going to pull that out and we're going to have some fun with that tonight. So thank you for being here with me on the July 4th weekend. It is the 5th, but man, America 250, we had a great time last night, right? What a great time last night. Okay, there we're getting some personality into the eye. I'm just gonna sweep this a little bit so I get a little bit of variation in that. I can always go back and add more dark, right? The same with this eye over here. So I'm just adding that little bit of water to get some gradient going. Get a little bit of variation in there. Okay. Ooh, lovely. All right, let's come down here to the jowl. And see, I can pick up some of this color and then bring some of it along here, because in my picture, there's a little bit of sort of grayness there, and then it comes back to being black. There we go. Okay, that is supremely fun. Loving it. If you wanted to just do like a black and white and gray, oh my gosh, definitely pick yourself up some of these. There'll be a link to it in the description of the video on YouTube. Okay, so now, oh, I'm so happy right now. Let's come in with some of the mid gray. So for the middle gray, we've got this area over here on the side of the face where the ear, I'm going to bring this down like this so you can see it a little bit better. Ooh, let me move my phone so I have it over here. You should be able to see that a little bit better. Okay, so I've got some middle gray in here that comes down this way, right along the edge of the face here, right? So let's just get the middle gray here. And again, aquarellable, so I'll be able to take a brush to it. Ooh, we'll see what sort of undertone it has, right? So this is our mid gray. There's also some mid gray down in here. And remember, we're going to come back with some watercolor too. Now I could do this just as an exercise in where are my darks and lights, and then do another one on the 140-pound paper and bring my watercolor into that one. Or I could just paint watercolor right over top of this. So we'll see how it goes. We shall see. This comes sort of like this. And then there's this little area right down in here. So these are the middle grays. And more along the side of the face where the ear is here. Okay, like that. And it gets a little bit thicker in here. And then we've also got the middle gray right up here. See, I gave myself a reference point, this little line right here between the eyes, so I could see relative to the snout where my middle gray is right here. So I've got this going right here. It sort of comes up from here, comes around the eye like that. Yes, this sort of comes down there. And then this sort of comes up. And then I've got some coming off of the eye here too. There we go. And there's a little bit that seems to come along here and along here underneath the hair. So I'm going to throw that in there. And then there's a bunch of gray over along the side here. Now, looking at it, I see a much darker, oops. I see a much darker area on the back, right here along the back ear. There's a darker area. So I'm just going to bring this here because I can bring my brush in, right? And I can just adjust it with my brush with the water. There we go. And so that is where the back ear is. Nice. And what about right along here? Just going to bring a little bit of the extra dark right along there. right along in here. All right, so I'm adjusting my grays and my blacks. Nice. And let's come back to the grays here. There's a little bit more gray back in here. Like I said, I'm not too worried about it because I'm just going to use my brush in a minute and soften things up. There's actually a little bit of gray right in here at the top of the nose. It sort of comes back there. And then a little bit of gray that comes along here. And some gray that comes in here, right along the edge of the nose. Okay. So like I said, I'm not too worried. Now the nose is actually more gray and less black. So I'm going to put this mid-tone gray here. And then I'm also going to put a little bit of gray and black over on this side where it's slightly darker. So I'm going to bring a little bit of gray in here, but I'm also going to bring, or black, but I'm also going to bring a little bit of gray. Okay. And then down here, there's also a little bit of black. Okay, let's bring the gray in. So when I bring water to that, it's going to blend this gray and that black. Nice. Same is true here also. It's going to blend the gray and the black. There we go. Okay, because that nose is not all the way black. It's mostly gray. All right. Hello, doggy. Ah, the doggy's face is beginning to show. I love that. Now, let's see, we've got some more over here. Just a little bit starting here as we go down into the ear. We have a little bit of grayness and a little bit of grayness as it comes down through here. And I'm getting the direction of the hair going, right? And there's some lighter areas up here. So I'm just going to go back into this part of the ear right here. There's a little bit of really dark right there. So let's get some of the black. And just bring the black in there. Just a little bit of black that will soften with the water, right? And then we've got some more gray happening. I'm going to leave a lot of the gray undone because I'm going to come in with color afterwards. Okay, let's bring some more of the gray. Just to give it a hint, right? Okay. Sort of say, these are my grayer areas here. How the hair is growing. Okay. There we go. Hello, puppy doggy. All right, let's take this lid and I'm going to soften. Ooh, let's soften some of this gray. You know what? I'm going to go with a little bit bigger brush. This is the size 6. I need a little bit more hair surface area for this. So I'm going now with the 8. These are the black velvet brushes by Silver. They were on sale at Jerry's in Fort Lauderdale when Jerry's, just before they announced they were going to close, they had a big sale on these silver brushes. And wow, I was like, what? You're selling them for what? Okay, I'm definitely buying those. Can't let a good deal like that go. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm getting a nice light gray going. It's just a little bit of the aquarelle there. That's good. Nice, sort of bringing it together. And then over here, it has kind of a, this gray has a bit of a, almost a brown tone to it. And that was the number, says cool gray 4, 233. So you can get a whole range of grays from these Gold Faber Aqua dual markers from Faber-Castell. Okay, I'm going to go ahead into the black since I'm here and sort of bring this black into here. And if I felt like it was too much, I have my cloth, so I can just dip back into that and pick up some of the color if I felt like it was too much color. Okay, so no worries there. Let's see, I need a little bit more of this to come like this. So it needs to just be like a little bit more like this down in there. Okay, cool. Now, I would recommend that you try this grayscale method. Even if I wasn't planning to put color over top of this, it can be very helpful to do a grayscale artwork to define where your lights and darks are and midtones before actually painting a subject in color. Okay, it's called a grayscale subject, and it's great for really getting a feel for, okay, first of all, getting a feel for the shape, getting a feel for the variations in the color. Where do I want to go lighter? Where do I want to go darker? Okay, so this corner is a combination of black and gray. Whoop. Let's bring that over like that. Just bring this in here. Got our gray going on the nose. Hello, nose. It's okay to leave yourself a little bit of white. White is a good suggestion. It gives you good, it delineates shapes for you. I like using white a lot, leaving white as I'm painting with watercolors. Not as much in acrylics. Mostly I do that. I leave the white lines in watercolors for the most part. Okay, is the puppy doggy beginning to show? I think the puppy's beginning to show. Ooh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't put gray down in here. So I need to bring some more gray in there. I see you. Need to just bring some more gray down in here. Just soften it with your brush like that. There we go. And a little bit more this way, like that. Okay, and I can see I need just a little bit more gray over here too. So we're gonna pull a little bit more gray into there. Oh my gosh, I love the personality that this dog has. Already, I'm already in love. Hello, Hope. Okay, there we go. Oops, that was too much. See what I was saying? If it's too much, I have a special brush here. Where's my special brush? Eee. I don't know where my special brush went. There it is. So this is a, nope, this is an Artec. Okay, I don't want to use that one. I just need some sort of flat brush that's somewhat stiff, and I can come in here, and if you have a decent watercolor paper, you can pick up where the paint is that you didn't want it to go. Okay, so I'm able to pull back some of that color right there. Okay, I'll set that one aside. Oh, it's looking good. I like it. I like it. And where else do I need? This is mostly white down here. There's a little bit of gray. So I'm just going to put a little bit right there. Let's just put a little bit next to the black right there, leaving a little bit of white there. because there's a whole bunch of light color right there. All right. And I'm looking for more areas. Where do I need to bring my brush in? So I'm softening this gray here. Nice. And I'm using some strokes to make it look like there's hair there. So I'm just following along and using the brush to suggest the direction that the hair is growing and softening those edges. There we go. This is that little tuft of hair underneath the dog's neck. Underneath the neck, there's a little tuft, right? And that's what this is right here. Okay. Hello, pup doggy. A little bit more. We're going to come in here over on the ear now. Let's do this section right here, which comes down along the edge of the ear and the face. And here there's some black. So we're just combining the black down in there with the gray. Oops. Hello. Grab that brush. So now I'm just bringing the combination of the light gray and the black down this way. Okay. There's a little bit less black I need right there. So I'm just going to lift a little bit of that out. There we go. And then let's do the ears. So I'm just grabbing a little bit of water again on my brush because the color's already on there, right? I don't have to grab color with my brush. I just grab water. Ooh. Okay, so we're getting some hair going there. And I'm just brushing it in the direction that the hair would be growing, just to give us the idea. Hello, hairs. I'm going to bring this up close for you in just a minute so you can kind of see where that black bleeds a kind of a blue out of it when you add the water. Whereas this middle gray is giving us almost a brownish gray. Okay, there we go. A little bit of water, just sort of carrying it up in there. Nice. Whoop. Just moving it in the direction that the hair would be growing. Go. I love the way it softens the edges there. Ooh, hello. Hello, black. It's okay. And then let's get some more of the gray going here. Almost done with this mid-tone gray. And then we're going to go to the lighter gray. And of course, I can layer these grays also. Let me bring it up so you can see how when this black gets wet, what happens? It kind of offshoots a little bit of blue, which is fun. I like it. I like it. I like it. Oh, the doggy looks so cute. Let's use some of this lighter gray and see what happens. So there is a light gray line for the dog's jowl, which sort of comes like this and comes down and in. All right, I see that. And there's a little bit of that going on here too. So I am looking at what is the direction that the hair is growing. And so I am taking that into consideration. And then we have a little bit of this right in here. We're going to be combining it with some of the black that's there. Okay. And a little bit of it that comes off of here in that direction, like that. Okay, so this is supposed to be a lighter gray than the last one that we just put in. So there's going to be a little bit more of this light gray up in here. And it actually sort of comes down like this around the edge of the snout. So we're just suggesting the direction that the hair is going in here. There's some of it that's coming around the eye here and up. So I'm just adding in some of the direction of the hair. More hair. What's nice about the brush tip, I feel, is the way that if you push and lift, you're going to get that nice little spike at the end. And then that gives you the feel of hair. Now I could use this end, which is the detail end, if I wanted to come in here and really get some detail hairs. I can use the little bitty end right there and put some detail hairs on the top of the dog's nose. There we go. Detail hairs. And then we might also want some detail hairs down in here. Like that. Okay. And some detail hairs over here. We definitely have some like flyaway detail hairs here. So that's using the small end instead of the larger end. So you have a little more control this way in the shape and the direction. There we go. Hello, cutie. Hello, hello, hello. I like it. Okay. Wow. She is coming together. Now, this is not the lightest one. Let me do a little bit more. There's just a little bit more down here so that I can show the direction of the hair going here. Just throwing those little details in if you want to. You don't have to. I like it even without the details. That's fun. Okay. And then this actually comes, there are little tiny hairs that come down here. And you can sort of see them if I put them in like that. Okay, let me bring it up closer so you can see the detail that I'm talking about right along here using the detail end of the brush instead of the brush end of the marker rather. Okay. So there's a lot more of this detail right along here. So let me just bring some of that in here. Okay. I like leaving white space. I don't think it's necessary to cover the whole thing, the whole dog in marks. I like leaving white space. So let's just get, there's in the jowl here, there's a whole bunch more sort of little hairs that grow in this direction. So this way, if I take a brush to it, I've got a little bit of possible detail to go in there too. Okay. And then down here underneath, we have little cutesy little hairs, right? Always underneath their mouth. You're going to find these cute little hairs. And I could underneath here use the darker gray, but we'll start with the lighter gray and we'll see how it goes. All right, starting with the lighter gray so that we have less color shift when we use the water, if that's what we want to do. Okay, awesome. And then there are a few hairs that sort of do this right here, almost like eyebrows, right? Over the top of the dog's eyes. Hello, cutie. And these come this way. There we go. This has little tiny hairs coming down over here, little ones up here. So we've got this. Okay, I like it. I like it. I can always go back when it's dry and add some more of those. Let's see. I've got some more hairs here that kind of go along. All right. I'm going to go a little crazy and I'm just going to keep adding this right there because it's there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to add those hairs. Okay. So this is where we can get really crazy and add all this beautiful detail in here. Right? Show the fluff. Let's show the fluff right on top of there. Who's going to try this grayscale now that you see how it works? Oh my gosh, this pupster is so stinking cute. Hello, baby. Let's do it like that. And then we have more hair come this way. I'm going to leave a little bit of, well, this area is actually a little bit, there's going to be a little bit more gray in here. The area that gets left a little bit lighter is this area right in here. Okay. Wow. Hello, pupster. Let's just add a little bit of water. Not a lot, just a little bit. So cute because this line that I put in there, I kind of want to I want to get rid of that a little bit. So I want to add some water in here to just sort of soften that harsh line. It doesn't have to be so harsh. It can be more softened and just have all the hair sort of melt into it, right? Let's melt the hair. Hello, melty hair. So that way it becomes more of a suggestion than a line. Aha. So it looks like I made it too much of a line, but that's okay. This is the grayscale, right? This is where you test your theory of what it is that you want to do. And you get an idea, oh, okay, I don't want to define that line quite so much. Okay, I'm just using a bunch of water here to try to soften those little detail lines that I put in. Just water. Ooh, that's nice. I like the, hey there, it's Simpson's Yellow Champion. Welcome in over on Whatnot. I'm doing an art lesson right now, which is first we're doing grayscale. So that's what I'm using, some gray markers, a dark, a midtone, and a light. And to render this beautiful doggy. And then we're going to look at doing the doggy in color. I like doing a grayscale to get a feel for where do I want my lights and darks and to make those sort of mistakes or moves that I might be like, ooh, okay, I don't want to emphasize that when I do the actual color version of this this subject, right? So I softened around the eyes. That's great. Let's soften around this eye just a little bit more. Okay. I'm just bringing the water to soften these little edges right here. Okay. And then we have lots of little hairs down here. So I'm just bringing a little bit of water to sort of soften it. Yeah, when I touch that black just sort of explodes into that area, doesn't it? So I'm just going to make it sort of, since it exploded, I'm just going to make it explode a little bit more. There we go. So it exploded, but we also have our other lines. Okay. So now let me go into the ear, and then I think we're going to be done with the grayscale. Ooh, yep, the blue's exploding. Like I said, if there was too much of that dark, and I didn't like that about the what's up here, I can just use my paper towel and I can lift some of it, right? I'm like, ooh, I don't like it being too blue there. Okay, so then I just lift some of that blue out using my paper towel. But that was the blue was sort of exploding out of the black. Oh my gosh. Okay, that makes me very happy to see this dog now in grayscale. It's such a cutie patootie. Now I see there's a lot of water here, so I'm just going to use the end of my paper towel and lift a bunch of that up. It does bloom, meaning you can start to see like a bloom on the edge, similar to in this area, but I'm okay with that because, like I said, this is a test. This is a grayscale. This is getting a feel for where we want our colors. Ooh, I can see right now that I need more of this little sort of defining hairs right in here, where it just goes up like that. Okay. And if I had white, I would be using, I don't know if there's white. There is white. I don't know how well the white is going to go over top of the dark. I guess we'll find out, won't we? Hee hee. Right now here. So let me take, this is the titanium violet light, number 277. Let's see, what does it look like? It actually looks sort of like a, look at that. It looks kind of like a blue. Huh. Okay, well, I'm just going to put a little bit of it up here and we'll see what happens. It doesn't really go over top of the gray so much. Okay, so I won't use that so much. I think maybe I'll put some of it right here in the eye and some of it right over here in the eye, just to add that little bit of extra something, something. Okay, so this, what looks like a white is actually not a white. Even though it says titanium in it, it doesn't come out white. It comes out this little bit of a, I would call it snow blue. So definitely not something I would want to use in replacement of white, but not in this set. But a lot of illustrators and artists use two different whites. These are the whites that I use. Okay, here we go. This one is Dr. P.H. Martin's. Ooh, let's put the puppy over here. Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Awesome. And then this one is Copic Opaque White. The cool thing about the Copic one is it has a built-in brush. Let me show you that. I'm going to put it over top of a paper towel like this. So see how there's a little brush that comes on it? Now what you have to be careful of is when you hold it down, it gets a big old ball at the end of it. So usually I will take that little ball off and then I'll come in here. Oh, another little ball's coming. See, it happens because the little ball, there's a lot of white up here. And so it starts to go down and forms a little ball. So if you want to be more precise, get rid of that little ball. Yeah, here comes another one. And then you can come in here and put your like your, right, your white, if that's what you need to do or want to do. And let's just do that right there. It's a little too much white on that eye over there, but it doesn't matter because what? I can just cover it back up with black. But I like this Copic opaque white because of the built-in brush, but just be careful because those dots keep going down. Now this one, which is the Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white, you have to take a brush to it and it gets thick over time. Like this one is really thick right now. But look at this. See, I can just use either a toothpick or a pin, and then I can just come in here or a small brush and put in the bleed proof white like that. And it will, this is beautiful over top of watercolors. Okay, I like my grayscale puppy. I think my grayscale puppy's super cute. So I'm going to use my grayscale puppy. I can either go right over top of this with color because I already have my grays established, right? My blacks and grays, and just paint right over top of it. Or I can use another watercolor paper and using the things that I've learned from this painting in terms of where to place the blacks and the grays, then I can just use a piece of this Canson XL. So let's do the transfer again onto here, onto the Canson XL. Ah, I just love my grayscale. My grayscale pup. This is what the color pup looks like. Now you can make the pup any color you want, but let's say that I wanted to make the pupster like blue and purple and red. Um, just bear in mind where you want your darkest darks, your midtones, and your lights. That's why I like to do a piece like this so that I just get a feel for where are those punch areas. Where do I need to really keep it dark and then maybe not so dark. Okay, so let's go ahead with this one again. And where is my, there it is. Yee. So here is my, this is the Canson XL watercolor paper. Great studio paper. I love it. Okay, so I'm putting my, oh, I need that a little bit higher right there. So I've got my, let's see, where's the edge of the paper and the edge of the paper. I have to move the doggy over a little bit and use my blue tape. Hey there, Patrick Dorland. Welcome in over on Whatnot. Okay, so I'm taping together. It's touching the watercolor paper, the transfer paper, and the paper with the image. Okay, so I am not going to draw this line this time. I'm just going to visually work with that. So let's get back to the pen. Oftentimes, I like to use a different color pen or pencil for the second time around because that way, oftentimes I'll use an image to do a transfer multiple times. So each time I do the outline, I use a different color pencil or pen so that I know where my lines are. So let's do the eye here, like that. This way I know where the lines are. Okay, we'll bring that down there. Bring it up here. This one right here. A little bit like that. Then we have the eyeball. Hello, eyeball. Okay, let me make sure I got all of that. Yes, there's that eye. Here is, let's make sure the other eye. We got everything. Yep. Okay, I'm going to give myself a reference line across the bridge of the nose right there. There's the edge of the head. There's the edge of the nose. I've got a little bit of a fluffy fluff there, little fluffy fluff down here. Sort of guidelines. Got this here, this here. Got this coming up here, this bottom part of the mouth that goes up into the nose. And then I've got this part of the mouth. This part is black right here. So I know I'm talking you through it, but this is what I just sort of follow along with my lines that I already made. And now I know that I have already gone over. When I finish with this, I'll have gone over the whole nose. Let's do this other ear out here. And then it comes like that. And then here's the bottom lip along here. And the bottom of the jaw. Let's get this part right here for the bottom of the lip. I know some people are like, isn't that cheating? And it's like, well, I don't know. If you're just learning how to draw and paint, it can be a huge help to use tools like transferring. And until you get more comfortable with doing your hand drawing, which I do a lot of hand drawing. I just thought for tonight I'd make it a little bit simpler for you because when I hand draw, it takes me a lot longer to render the image just because of the way that just because of the way that I do the drawing. And I'm constantly erasing and okay, let's bring this down here. And let me bring this here. Okay. Hello, baby. Hello. Now, the last time I did this line right here, but I'm not doing that line this time. I am going to kind of give myself a reference for this dark area right here. There. I don't know how well that's going to come out. It didn't come out. Okay, let's see. Let me press a little bit harder. So you can vary your pressure, and then that will vary how dark the line is. Okay, let's see. How did I do? Hello, Pupster. There we go. Now this part right here, I did not press very hard. So let me press just a little harder to get more of a line there. Okay. And what did I do the last time? I kind of came in here, gave myself an idea of where this sort of gray area is. So let me do that this time. And there's a little bit of gray there and a little bit of gray there and a little bit of gray there. Okay. How did I do? I can barely see it, but I guess that's the idea. Okay, so now I've transferred the image onto here. Nice. It is very light, except for the nose. I was pressing a little bit harder on the nose and the eye. So again, if you weren't here earlier, this is the Jack Richardson transfer paper, which I love. Okay. Now I'm going to put this Dougie aside. Actually, I'm going to start with the grays. Let's use the, okay, where did my putty eraser go? Putty eraser. I put it in my lap. Where are you? Where are you, putty eraser? Eek. I didn't put it back in its normal place, so now I have to search for it. Where did you go? All right, I don't know where my putty eraser went, but I'm going to take my regular eraser and just very gently go over these lines so they're not quite so dark in terms of going in and doing my painting. Okay. They're there. I can see them. but they're not as dark. There we go. Okay, so there is the outline of the dog. Again, see how quick and easy it is to do that when you use a transfer paper? Woo-woo. Love that. Okay, so I'm going to take what I learned here. Oh my goodness. Hello, Pupster. And I'm going to apply that to this painting, but with color. So the first thing though, I'm going to start out with these eyes, and I'm actually going to use the black marker again, okay, on the eyes. Oh, you know what? I have something I think is even better than that. Here I have, I love the lunar black from Daniel Smith. And so I have one right here. I'm going to put some water in it to get it juiced up. But the lunar black from Daniel Smith is very granular. It's very grainy, and I love that about it. So let's see if I can pull some color here from the lunar black. And it's very granulating. You can see right there. So let's start out with, I'm going to start out with part of the eye here. Ooh, okay. It's coming out like super dark right now. Hello, black. And then right in here, this area right in here, like right around like that. And then we've got this area right here and across the top there and around the iris like that. And up here like that. Okay, so there's that eye. And this is watercolor. So if it was too dark in some area, I can feather it out just with water. Okay. So we're going to bring this here. This is the iris, the inside of the eye. It's quite dark. Okay. So we're just doing that to start. I'm actually looking at my grayscale in order to kind of get a feel for what's going on here. Okay. And then we're going to come over here to this eye. And I actually left a bunch of light color here, even though it's not showing in the picture, because I want you to be able to see the eye. And so I had to leave sort of a light color in part of this area. That is there's the iris, the center of the eye right there. And then here's this right here. Okay, and then I'm adding a little bit of water to my brush so I can sort of feather this out and make it a little bit lighter right there. So it's not coming out as light as I want it. So I'm just going to take away some of it like that. There we go. So that part is a little bit gray. Okay. So yes, I'm using the information from the last one that I did to give me some ideas here. All right. Again, right in here, I want to lift some of this black out. I don't want it to be quite so dark. It's going to dry a little bit lighter anyway, but I'm just trying to give the eye a little bit of extra dimension by putting down paint and then removing paint. There we go. Now we've got a little bit more interest going right there. Nice. Okay. And for this one over here, this eye, I'm going to bring this in here like this. There we go. Now the eye has a little more personality, right? Let's bring it right down around here. There. Okay. A little bit better there. All right, we got you. We got you, girly. We got you. Remember, I said her name is Hope, right? Like day 6 of the prompt for day 6 of World Watercolor Month. Okay. Now I want to soften up this edge just a little bit. I don't want it to be quite so harsh in there. There we go. All right. And then next I want to do the nostrils. So the nostrils are going to be very dark. The nice thing about using a black like this, either ivory black or Mars black. So your typical watercolor blacks, this is lunar black, um, is that when I add water to it, it's gray, it's not blue. This one, when I did the grayscale, if I added water to this, it started to come out blue. So that's a little different, right? Than what I really wanted. I really want the black to turn gray when I add water to it, not blue. But okay. See, dipping in just a little bit more. Again, this is the Daniel Smith Lunar Black. Lunar Black, which I love. I love it because it's very granulating, and I love that about it. Okay. Hello, doggy. There we go. Now, the rest of the nose is going to be a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush. So I still have the black on there. Whew, let's move you aside a little bit. But I'm just going to do this, and it's going to look a little more gray because it has a lot of water in it. Okay, there we go. So it is dark down here in this area, but I just want it to be, ooh, and this line right here is actually quite dark. But I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make it a little bit more gray by lifting it. So I need a clean area of my cloth there. There we go. Let's make it just a little bit darker along the bottom there. There we go. And a little bit darker along the bottom there. And a little bit darker up into here. All right, there we go. So now we've got the nose going with some really, really darks right there. It's also dark over here. Now that I have a lot of water on my brush, you can see it's coming out gray instead of coming out black, right? And it's okay to leave a little bit of white, next to that dark, dark, dark black, right? Okay, cool. So this is just, I can always come back and water. There's a push and a pull to watercolor. So I can always come back in with more gray, or I think there's going to be more brown added to the gray here. You see how there's a little bit of brown on the nose right there? Oh, it's so cute. So I just added a little bit more water so I can get it a light gray, and then it'll be easy to put the brown right over top of that light gray, lighter gray. There we go. Even more water for an even lighter gray. Nice. Okay, again, Lunar Black by Daniel Smith. One of my favorite blacks. You know, there's a lot of times you'll get in a set an ivory black. Oftentimes you don't get any black at all. But I love not everybody loves granulation, and I love the granulation of this lunar black. Okay, hello. Now I can still add a little bit of brown on top of that nose, but at least the darks are in. Ooh, there's another area where it's quite dark, and that is down here, right? Is that little flap of skin that comes down here. Okay, like that. Now, I didn't make it super dark, but that's okay. I can always come back and make it darker. Let's see, with the mouth, I did it like this. The mouth comes down here. So again, I'm blocking in my darks. I do like to, with watercolor, most people are like, you put in your lights first and then you go for your darks. And I'm like, I like to put in my darkest darks first, and then I might go back to my lightest lights. Uh, because by putting in your darkest darks, you're going to start defining your image, right? And then once you've defined your image, the rest is almost like paint by numbers. Okay, there we go. Nice and dark right there. And then I need it to be dark right here. That's the other part of the jowl right there. Okay. And it sort of sticks out a little bit like that. That is that part, but over there. Okay, and then there's like a little bit here. It just sort of comes like this. Oh, there we go. There's the edge of the mouth. And right here from the middle, there's a bunch of black coming this way and down, bunches of black. So again, we're just bringing the gray, but I can come back in later and add more of the dark. But I may actually add the dark with a dark brown instead of adding the dark, like a sepia, instead of adding the dark with black. Okay, but this is just giving me a feel for where the darkness is there. Okay, there we go. Oop. And then here. Okay, I'll bring it up for you in a second so you can see the granulation. Oh, it's so lovely. So lovely. Okay, dark, dark, dark. Come on. I need the lip down here to be super dark in that part of it. So yes, you can layer. Once one area is dry, just layer more on top, okay? And I'm gonna bring this just a little bit darker right here too. This part. I'll bring it up for you in just 1 second so you can see what I mean here. Adding that dark. Okay. Hello, baby. Hello, hello. So there's an idea of the nose right there, and that's done with paint instead of doing it with markers. This was the grayscale where I did it with the markers. But I'm following along a lot with the grayscale as well as looking at the picture of the dog because I can use my paint right over top of that gray. Okay. Yay. Another area where it's kind of middle gray is down here. So I am going to put a little bit, just a little bit of this down here. Ooh, that's dark. Okay, let's add some more water to that. It's a little too dark. Because I'm actually going to end up putting brown over top of that. Okay. Like that. Okay. So I'm just sort of defining the gray areas there. There's a lot of darkness over here. So again, a little bit of black, just a little bit. Add a little bit of water on there. It helps to have a brush with a nice tip to it, which is definitely these silver brushes are super nice for that. Okay, let me just bring this, and then I'm going to use my cloth and pick some of that up. Okay, so the edge of the cloth, and just come down in here, pick some of that up. Okay, it's a little more grayish. Nice. Let's bring it a little bit darker there. There's going to be a lot of brown in this area. So I just want to soften that edge. And the brown's going to go over top of that. So that will just essentially be a shadow. Okay, where else do I need a shadow, my dear? I need a light shadow in here. Oh, okay. I'm looking at the color, and I'm actually going to use the brown for here. There's a tiny bit of an extra shadow right there. So when I say a tiny bit, I'm just going to use a tiny bit right in here. And that is way too dark. But this is good watercolor paper, so it allows me to pick this up. You see there? And if it were cotton watercolor paper, wow, it would even let me pick it up more. This is a cellulose watercolor paper. I'm just sort of giving some shape to that part of the face right there. And I'm going to be going back over it with the brown. So I'm not too worried about that. So I need just a little bit more here. Right. So I'm going back and forth. I'm looking at my grayscale that I made. And then I'm also looking at the picture, because this area right here on my grayscale I had as middle gray, but you can see on the color, it's actually a dark brown. So I don't want to put black in there yet, right? I do not want to put black in there. Now I want to try to soften this area along the top here, because yes, it's black, but it also is just going to go sort of like this. So I'm just I'm pulling that edge and just getting it to go a little bit sort of soft and gray, which I can do because it's watercolor. Yay. And then this eye over here, I'm going to do something similar. I'm just going to pull some of the edge of that out like that. Pull some of the edge of this out like this. Okay, yay. Thank you, silver brush. Have that really nice tip to it right there. Okay, so this, I'm just doing it with the black and gray, but I will be going over it with the brown. There we go. Just pulling that out a little bit. All right, now there's a dark area right here. There's a shadow, and there's a shadow underneath the chin. So let's go ahead and pop that in with a dark, too much. Too much. I want it to be gray, and then I'm going to be using brown, the dark brown over top of it. So I'm just sort of building it here, but I'm going to remove some of it because I just want it to be gray. I know it seems counterintuitive, right? It's like you pay a lot of money for your watercolor paints and then you're putting them down and picking them back up again. But it is a means to an end. It is. There we go. And let's see what we've got here. So I just wanted to have a little bit of this darker gray here so that when I put the brown over it, I've got a really good shadow there. Okay. Right? You want to have contrast between your light areas and your dark areas. So you need that, sometimes you need that extra punch. Okay, let's see what's going on in the ear. So in the ear, I have a little bit left over on my brush here. I'm just going to, this is the area where there was a little bit of extra darkness, extra gray, dark gray here. So I'm just going to add that with the little bit of black that I have left on here and bring it down just a little bit more. There we go. Because most of that's going to be brown, but right now, at least I've got a little bit of the gray in there. Okay, so this is putting in the darkest darks and the grays so that then I can start building the browns on top. So here is the grayscale. Remember, I said I'm not going to put this line in here. I'm going to do that with paint instead. And then I didn't need to put in all these hairs because I'm going to be doing that with the brown. But having done the grayscale helped a lot with this area right in here and with the eyes especially. And then getting the dark here and the dark along here. Okay. So it can help to have your grayscale for that. All right. Let's see. I think on the nose, there's a little bit of a light area right here. So I just wet my brush and I'm going to pick a little bit of that paint up to give the impression that there's light on there. Okay, you get it wet and then you can use the edge of your paper towel or kitchen roll, as they say in England, and pick it up. There we go. So now I have a little light spot on the nose. And I want to show you, look up closely at the black of the nose and here. Can you see the granulation there? It just makes me so happy. The granulation is this. It looks like little bits, bitty bits, like dirt almost, right? Okay, ooh, now the excitement starts. Here we go. Let's take the Meeden palette here. And we are going to start putting some color on here. Let me make sure you can still see that clearly. Yes. Okay. And I'm going to move the palette up. Hold on a second. I'll get rid of that camera stand like that so that I can move this back just a little bit more. You can still see all the colors. Nice. Okay. So now I'm going to start with the lightest color. So I put in my darkest darks. Now I'm going to go in with my lightest lights. Okay. Um, so now the color dog image comes into play. And it's super light here, super light here, super light, light down here. So I'm going to start pulling some of my, this is Quinacridone Gold up here. Let's see what it's looking like. 2 yellow, right? There's yellow ochre. Let's see how the yellow ochre is looking. Not, I'm looking for something a little earthy. So those are not quite earthy enough yet. Whoa. Okay, well, that is way too earthy. Let's add some yellow to that. Let's go back to this one. That is the yellow ochre. Let's see. Ooh, this dog is mostly yellow ochre color. Okay, cool. So I'm going to get lots of water. So I barely have any yellow ochre. You know what? You know what I don't have in here is Indian yellow, and I love Indian yellow, but I think I'm going to take just a tiny bit of new Gamboge. There we go. So that yellows it up just a little bit more. Very warm yellow. Lots of water on my brush. As a matter of fact, I'm adding even more water. So this is just the light areas. And this is even too dark for the light areas, isn't it? And it is too dark for the light areas. So let me, while this is still wet, I'm going to pick some of this up because I don't want it to be too dark. Ah, there we go. Nice and light. Nice and light. And then more water. And I want it to be nice and light over here as well. Right? It's very light right in here. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to be adding more color as I go. But right now I'm just getting my light colors in there. I'm actually going to put this light color underneath here. It's mostly white underneath here, but that's okay. I'm going to put a little bit of color underneath here instead. There we go. So that is my light. Hello, doggy. All right. So it's also very light right in here because the doggy's older. So the doggy has a lot of light areas, especially around the eyes. Okay, light. There we go. Oh, he's so cute. I can see it very clearly, but I'm going to bring it up to you because I don't know if you can see the color so much because it is light. Okay, so just so you can see where it's really light. And I look back and forth between the dog and my imagery here. Okay, light areas here. We have some light hairs that come up against the dark hair right there. Okay, a little bit of light out here as well. Okay. I like having a round brush like this so you can really get the strokes going in the right direction, right? For the hair. Okay, well, let's see here. There's actually, let's go just a little bit darker. So down in here, it just goes a little bit darker, but I'm going right over top of the black, y'all. Right over top of the black because, okay, let's see where the ear is. The ear comes here and the ear comes here and the ear comes up in here and a little bit up in here. There we go. So that's why I said you put that black in and then you're going to glaze right over top of the black with your color. Woohoo! Awesome. And so, yes, it's black, but it's black with a little bit of brown on it. Actually, I'm going to bring a little bit more of this brown so that it's, that was that darker brown. So I've got a nice combo of the dark. So here I'm just glazing over top, putting that a little bit darker underneath, right? And bringing it up here. So this is that darker color that I went, whoa, it was too dark for what I wanted, but for the shadow, it's like perfect to put over top of the gray so that the gray becomes brown, right? And then it just looks like a darker version of the hair, right along the edge there. Okay, nice. All right, where is there more of the darkness? More of the darker brown is over here. So right where that black or the is that I made into a gray. There we go. Like that, right? And then I'm going to go just a little bit lighter, so more water and a little bit of this one over here. So I've got sort of a combo. And I'm just bringing that in here. Okay, there we go. And of course down in here. Nice. Okay, you see how I went right over top of the black? Love that. So when you drop in those grays, and you know, a lot of teachers are like, don't use black. And I'm like, honey, there's black, like it's there for a reason. I like to use it to create my grays, my darker colors. Okay, so there's actually some of this dark right along here, right along the nose, right? So I'm just going to put it right over top of that black, right there. Okay, so it's coming out here. Dark color, dark, dark, dark. Remember, if it's too dark or not the right color, you can always lift it back out, y'all. Okay, right underneath the lip, I'm going to add some of the dark because then that just sort of gives you some dimension to the lip, right? And then we need dimension right here too. Okay. And then, oh, I'm going to have to turn it. I have to turn it in order to get over here to drop some of that dark in. Where is the line? There's the line right there. So I actually need it to be darker for this area over here because this is more in shadow, this side over here. Okay. See how I left that little bit of white right there? So that it kind of brings your attention to that area of the nose right there. Okay. More of this darker color that was combined with the yellow ochre. What is the darker color? Let me look. Let me look at my book here so I can tell you which one it is. So it's next to, oh, okay, it's Caput Mortem Violet. It's this one right here that I grabbed. And that's what's has sort of a violety, violety brown there. Okay. There we go. A little bit more. So I want it to be, we've got the, okay. I'm just being careful as I go past the nose right here. And this actually, we're going to have lots of little wisps coming off of here, off the side. So let me just put that, the Caput Mortem, right over top of the black so that we've got our shadows, right? We've got our shadow there. And I'm drawing it out so they blend together so that my shadow blends in with that dark brown color. Okay, and now let's take the smaller brush to do the edge over here. So this one was the number 6. Actually, do I have my number 4 in here? Let's see. I have a whole pile of them right here. Let's use the number 4 because it's just that much smaller. Can you see the eye starting to come to life now next to, like, I've got contrast, right? I have super dark and then I have light right there. So that's what's happening. American cheese, welcome in over on Whatnot. So let's get some more of that Caput Mortem. And you know what? I want to add a little bit of burnt umber to that. Eee. Oh, nice. Okay. I'm using a number 4 brush. I'm making sure that everything here is dry. Another thing I could do is I could take a piece of paper and just put it right here so that I can rest my hand just in case. I want to be sure I don't have anything here. And now, what are we doing? We're just adding the little hairs. So that is your size 4 brush. There's like, woo, hairs that are going in all different directions over here. So we're going off the edge of the ear. I want to get some of that black so it kind of combines in with that. There we go. A little more water. With a smaller brush, you just have to dip it in the water more often. Okay. There we go. So this is why I wanted to get the a primary color down, a solid color, and then come back in and just build these little hairs over top of that. Ooh, hello. Hello, puppy doggy. Doesn't look so much like a puppy. This doggy looks very old. Oh, just like that. Okay. So we've got some hairs going. All right. Now we have a fuzzy wuzzy ear, right? Now I would just looking at it from a standpoint of balance. I'm like, it follows too closely with the head. Oops, let's put this right here. So I'm actually going to build some more hairs out this way just to do something, make it a little bit different looking. Because I feel like the floppy ear is like back behind there. Okay. So for now, like if you look at the picture, the ear kind of goes from here and ends right about there. But I brought it down a little bit more. Okay. Yay. How we doing? Let's go back to a bigger brush now. I think I'm going to use a size 8 again. And now we need to look at, I put a lot of light colors in there. Now we need to look at sort of our mid-tone browns, okay? Like a honey brown. So this, I'm going to add a little bit of the burnt umber in with the yellow ochre. These are Winsor and Newton colors. So if you weren't here earlier, this is a Winsor Newton palette that I put together. Hey, girl upcycled. Just pop back on to see how the work is going. Looks so good. Ooh, thank you. Over on Whatnot. I appreciate it. Yep, it's a process, right? A lot of hours go into it. Okay, so we've got right right here, we've got a bunch of the midtone. So let me just sort of bring this in and a little bit more midtone here on the jowl. Right. So, gee, there we go. Using the paper towel, lift it a little bit, right? Okay. I'm actually going to bring it down over this dark brown that we already did to sort of bring them together. Okay. And I'm going to add more water here. Blah, and then bring it up this way as well. Okay. And then we need some of it up in here. So I'm going to turn my brush like this so that I'm following along with the way that actually, I think I'm going to do it this way because I'm sort of following along with the way that the hair is growing. I'm looking at the actual picture of the doglet in order to do this. Okay. There we go. That is what's going on right here. So a little bit of darker in the middle. So why don't I just grab a little bit of that darker and just drop it right in the middle here while this is still wet. So it sort of blends in with it, right? Nice. Hello, baby. And then there's some of this over here also, some of this sort of darker hair. And that going around the top of the eye gives you a little bit of additional context as to the shape we have going on here, right? And then over here, we also have a whole bunch of so see how I changed my grip here? So I'm bringing it around that eye. And gotta bring it around here. And then, ooh, it's kind of dark over this area. Not as dark as the ear, but it is definitely dark over here. And we've got some of the gray in the background, so that helps a lot to give us that color. Okay. Remember, I've already got some gray and I already have some light in the background here. Some light color back behind that eye. Okay, cool. Let's do just a little bit more here because I can see when I'm looking in the picture of the dog itself, I've got a little bit of darkness right around that eye right there. I have the gray there, but I want to add just a little bit more of this dark color to really inset the eye. A little bit more here to make it look like it's back behind there. The nose. You're back behind the nose, aren't you? Yes, you are. Okay, cool. Let's see. What else? What else? We have a lot of lightness right there. So I don't need to do a whole lot. I'm going to pick up some of the mid-tone, and there's hair right here along the eye that sort of comes up like this. So again, it's the direction that the hair is growing around the eye there. Just adding a little bit. Remember, there's gray in there already, right? So I'm sort of following along with that gray, the darker hairs there. Okay. And coming up here, a little bit more coming up this way also. Might as well bring some just all the way around. There we go. To help define the eye. All right. Now up in here, we've got sort of a combination of the honey and the light. Let me see what we have down here. We have a little bit of this mid-tone right down in here. Some of it just comes right in here like this, like that. And then I've got just a little bit lighter in here. So I'm moving the brush, trying to move it in the way that the hair would be going there. And I like using brush strokes because Lordy knows a lot of people do realistic type painting, and I am not a realistic painter. So I like when a painting shows the hand of the artist or the brush strokes of the artist. I think that's cool. That's fabulous. So you don't have to do um well, I don't like to make it look photorealistic either. Okay, I'm noticing that there's some like honey brown in the nose right here. So I'm just going right over top of the gray. Yay. Hello. Love that. So in the actual picture, you see how the nose is a little bit brown right there. Yay. So I can just go right over top of that gray with that color. Now, right down here, I need some of this mid-tone to make some little hairs. Oops, not this brush then. Let's use the number 2, is it? Number 4. Let's use the number. I do have the number 2 as well because I'm crazy like that. Okay, so right down here, this is where we have like little hairs, lots of them coming. Now, you don't have to take your time to do all of this. I like to do it. I love the movement of the brush when you're doing the little hairs. It's very what I would call meditative, right? Isn't that why we paint anyway? Because it's so meditative and fun. So I'm putting the little hairs. They're like little whiskery hairs down here along the bottom of the mouth. Let me bring that up so you can see. So I did do a little bit of detail there. Okay. I'm uh I'm happy with this area right here. Now, a lot of times too, I'll finish it and I'll leave it and then I'll come back to it the next day, right? Because you want to see, maybe you're looking at it with fresh eyes the next day. One thing I can see is this side right here needs to just be a little bit darker. So I'm just putting another layer here, a little bit darker there. Just another layer of color just to give it a little extra dimension, right? And then there's a little bit more of the black comes this way, more of a shadow underneath the nose there. Let's get it slightly darker. Uh-oh, that was more than slightly. There we go. Shadow, shadow, shadow. Constantly be looking for the shadows. There we go, right there. Yep. Nice. Okay. Ooh, I like where this baby's going. I like it. I like it. And let's see. So now I feel like we need some more hair up here. And it's going to be sort of mid-tone-ish. I think I will use the size 6 because there are some fluffy fluffies up there. Let's just start with putting in some of that mid-tone, which was what? Quinacridone Gold and yellow ochre. Uh-oh. I didn't make enough of the color. And then some of that. There we go. Very honey-like. Ooh, I need lots of water with that. Lots and lots of water because it is way too colored right now. There we go. So now let's just drop in a little bit of, this is very pale up here. And that has to dry. That's giving me my background color, right? And it has to dry. And then I'm going to drop in more hairs in the darker colors. Okay. So I just needed to add a little bit of, see at the top here where we have a little bit of honey back in there. So that's the light is hitting here and hitting up here on the dog. And now let's go into here, a little more concentrated. And just get a little bit of that going there. But this is the lighter. Here we go. Hair's growing that way, right? The hair is growing that way. Okay. Hello, gorgeous. I don't even feel like I need to use the white in the eyes because I left the little light. You see the little spot right there and the little spot right there. I left them already. So I don't even need to come in with more white for that. Yay. I like that. All right. I'm going to go with the size 8 now to do a little bit more of the hair down here. So let's take the side of the brush. And this is slightly darker, right? Because this area right here is darker. Okay. Like that. Ooh. Ooh, darker, 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 darker. Even darker still. I'm going to bring the darker hair up along here. Okay, there we go. Hello, baby. So this is a little bit darker than the initial hair that I put in there. And there's actually a little bit of darker hair here. You can sort of see it like that. Okay. Oof. So this was the Caput Mortem Violet and the Burnt Umber from Winsor & Newton. Okay. So let's just bring this down here. It's okay to go right over top of that gray, right? Because the gray is where I put a shadow. Okay. Thanks for joining, by the way, over on, oh, wow, amazing. Thank you. Over on YouTube, MST819. I appreciate it. Yes, we're having some fun today. We started out with a grayscale. So I started by taking my doggie here. It's not my dog, but hey, Kimmercast, welcome in over on Whatnot. So this is the image from Pixabay. And what I'm doing is I'm painting an image for World Watercolor Month, day 6, which would be tomorrow. And the subject is hope. So I typed in hope into Pixabay, and here's this dog, hoping to get a treat, right? Hoping to get a treat. And so, yeah, I love that. Love that. Love that. Okay, the eyes are actually a little bit brown. So I'm pulling a little bit of brown into here, into the eyes, so that you can see a little bit of brown in the eyes. Let's get a little bit more brown there. Yep. Nice. Okay, now you see the brown in the eyes, right? And yeah, so this was from Pixabay. I started out with the grayscale. So I took this picture and I put the color down to 0 and then made it grayscale. And then we started this process with a grayscale dog. And we didn't use watercolors for this, we used markers. So there was a dark, a midtone, and a light gray that we used to build this first image of the dog. And that's so we could see where are our darkest darks, where are our lightest lights, and just to learn about the subject before going in to do a final version here, right? Okay, see, back to the picture. Okay, so let me put a little bit more on the ears here. So the colors I'm using for the little bit darker is the Winsor and Newton, and that's what I have here is the Winsor and Newton colors. I have them in tubes, but I went ahead and put them into half pans, and I'm using the Caput Mortem, which is a type of violet. And I'm putting that together with the burnt umber. Sorry, burnt umber. Boop. There's the burnt umber right there. So let's use that a little bit more. So it's a little bit sort of more honey colored, right? And I could just sit here and build this ear like crazy, right? Because that's what it is. There's just a lot of hair here in the ear. And you just build up your colors. Leave a little bit of white space. I did some under bits that are a little bit lighter. There we go. Hello there. Hope. I'm calling the dog Hope. Now, you see how there's the very dark over here, which that's the Caput Mortem right here, right? Which is a violet-y color. But I just added it to the burnt umber so that I can put a little bit darker in here, because I don't want the dark, I don't want it to be out of balance, right? Because we have dark, dark, dark over here, which is in shadow. And then we've got some shadow here. Let me grab a little bit more of that. We have some shadow here, so we can put a similar color to this over here, right along that shadow, to indicate that that part of the ear is sort of down below, right? Down below the face. Okay. Here we go. And some hair out this way. Ooh, sounds like it's raining again. It's been raining all day where I am here in Central Florida. So I wanted to give a little more contrast between the face and the hair here and something sort of similar to what we have going on here. So let me grab a little bit more of this dark, just sort of bring it out here. So we've got some, just sort of building some continuity. All right. And I can even come in here and sort of mix what I had on my brush with this. And then now once, what I'll do is I'll wait for that to dry actually. And then I'll come back and I'll put a glaze over the whole area, which would be your background color like this. So I'm just going to leave that in my brush, the number 8 brush. And I'm going to go with the number 6 brush so it'll hold enough paint for me. And then I'm going to come up here and let's put some hairs. Let's put some hairs up here. So I've got this. Let's see what this looks like. This was the combo of the that yellow ochre and a little bit of Quin Gold. And then I think I'm going to grab just the tiniest bit of burnt umber in there. Okay. And now, so now I can do a little bit more. Let's just see what our color looks like. Oh, nice. So it's sort of honey. So this is, it's not as dark as the darkest dark there. So now I can just build some of the other hairs in here. And this is a size 6. I don't have to do all the hairs. I can leave it as a sort of suggestion, right? I just want to get some of the hairs coming off the top like that. I don't have to cover the whole area, just like down here. I don't have a bunch of hairs and I probably won't put a bunch of hairs there. Oop. So let me just, I am right-handed, so I really should be working from the left here first. Okay. So I'm just adding some smaller hairs here near the top of the head and sort of going in the direction where they would go. Right? So we'll just bring this up this way like that. I like to sit on it, sit on a painting like this, and then come back to it the next day and say, okay, what is it that that painting needs? Ooh, and thanks for all the thumbs up over on YouTube. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so just adding some more hairs here. Hello there, baby. Hello there, Hope. Doggy Hope, right? And let's just add some small ones in here to sort of show the hair growing in this direction. Oh my gosh, she looks gorgeous. All right. Well, I could spend a lot longer adding more little tufts of hair down in this area. I'm not going to do that right now. Let's see if this is dry enough for me to do the, yeah, to do the glazing. So this already has some color on it here. And so I'm just going to get a little bit more water on there. And then, like, I had a solid color in the background here. So I'm going to bring this and just glaze it, which is just to run it over top of what's already there. And that will help to bring together, make it look cohesive, like it's all one ear, right? But this is called glazing, where I come back in and I put a solid color in that background. I love glazing because it just adds that little bit, brings everything together that little bit. So it doesn't just look like the hairs are hanging out in midair, right? But you want to do it sort of quick. You want to have your brush be not too wet and not too dry, with just enough color to be able to fill those gaps. But I don't want it to be so much that all of these little hairs start losing their edges, right? Yay! I think that was successfully glazed. Now I'm also going to glaze, I can see the entrance to the ear here. So for instance, this area right here, I want that all to sort of come into the ear area and have the color be a little bit unified there, right? So again, let me do this. I'm using it on the side. Do you see how the brush is on its side? And so that's glazing that area, kind of tying this area of the dog's head in with that. Now I'm also going to come over here with a little bit of that leftover color, and I want to unify this over here. Let's glaze this area so it pulls those two together, right? There we go. It helps to bring that together. Nice. So it's not quite such a difference there. Okay. Well, I'm going to call this finished for tonight. That doesn't mean that it's completely done. I mean, it's possible that I will look at it later and be like, that needs a little bit of this or a little bit of that. I need to put more hairs in a certain place. But I think for the basic here, let me close this up a little bit. Boop. And this right here. And then show you the dog right there. So you can see this dog looks like it's looking more at me, maybe because of the way that I was painting it, the angle I was painting it at. Because I put my white up here and they have the white down here. But if I wanted to add the white down there, I could, right? This is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Let me take the size 4, which has a really nice tip, and just grab just a little bit on the tip right there. And then I'm going to put a little bit here and a little bit more right in there. There we go. And then this one has just that little bit, a little bit like right in here. There. Okay, so now that added just that little bit. I will bring it up close so you can see, but that is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. Every illustrator knows you have to have this on your desk, right? So here are the eyes, if you want to take a closer look. So I left that big part at the top, and then I just dropped in those 2 little white dots there on that eye. And that is on top of black watercolor. So that's why they call it bleed proof white, so that it won't bleed up into your color, right? Yay. So that is it for tonight's workshop. And it was creating a grayscale. So this was creating the grayscale with the gold faber aqua fiber pastel pens. These are water soluble pens. I used a dark, a medium, and a light gray. And that's how I created this study of the dog. And then we went from there to using watercolors and the color version, and used our grayscale to inform the where we were going to put the grays in this one. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. That is always a lot of fun for me to do. These art classes, I appreciate you being here with me. And I hope that you had a great 4th of July weekend. And I hope you'll like and subscribe and share this video with your friends. Thank you.